guys, this is Pearly. Welcome back to Listen to Myself. I'm really glad that you're joining me again today. So, today I want to talk about what it really means to be your own boss. So, I find this topic interesting because I think for most of us, I don't know, at least when I was a student, like a college student or like a high school student, like working for yourself or like being your own boss after you turn like like after you graduated from school wasn't really something that is that common. So I didn't really get to have chance or opportunity when I was still a student to listen to a lot of like stories about like what it really means to be your own boss. So that's why I find it really interesting. So I want to share with you about this topic today. But first, before I start, I want to first ask you a question. So, when it comes to being your own boss, like working for yourself, what comes to your mind? So based on my observation and also the answers that I got from people around me, I usually heard three different kinds of answers. So first of all, one kind of people are like, yes, I'm totally gonna be my own boss. I want to work for myself, or like this person is already working for himself or herself. This is like one genre of people. And another different type of answer that I got is like the exact opposite. It's like, no, I would never want to be my own boss and, work for myself because either there are lots of like reasons behind that. Either this person think that she or he didn't really have the ability or like the discipline to work for herself or himself because like yeah when you are working alone just for yourself like without a boss like there for you, probably you're just gonna do nothing because no one pushed you to do anything. So it might be one of the reasons why someone would not want to work for themselves, like be their own boss. And another answer that I got is like not so sure about whether they really can work for themselves. And even if they want to, they try to imagine that, they couldn't really tell or like know for sure is it really the right thing for them. I think just like what I said in the beginning of this episode, like I think we don't really get to have that many opportunity to listen to that many stories about people just working for themselves. We might heard of, already we might already heard about a lot of the stories about working at the stories about working at the company, or like I don't know, developing your own, I don't know, like establish your own company and then you have like employees under you, maybe like that kind of boss. But when it comes to like completely for someone like working themselves without any colleagues or team members and things like that, maybe we don't really run into this kind of stories that often. So that's totally understandable why a lot of people they just don't know if it's gonna work out if they now like are going to just work for themselves without any just like work alone, work for themselves without any colleagues or any like employees or any like team members or any boss, and you know what I'm talking about, things like that. So, just a little background story about my experiences in case you don't know about that. So, I have been working for myself since the start of last year. So, right now, almost 2 years, and I mainly work as a content creator on YouTube. So, I remember when I first started, like working for myself. When before I even started, I would say I was in the first group. Those people who said, "Yes, I'm totally gonna work for myself if I can do this. If I just like if I'm capable of doing that, I'm totally gonna do it. Like, just be my own boss. I can't not wait to do that. I think one of the main reasons why I fell into the first group of people was because, like, based on my experiences at my previous full time job, which I did from, I think, when was it? Like, the start of 2022 to the end of 2022, something like that. I kind of forgot. But so in my previous full time job, like, I noticed that a lot of times, a lot of things that caused me to be just like depressed and unhappy were mainly about like related to people. It's always like people problem when it comes to like working with others, like at the company, especially when there are like quite many people, even if they're like it's a small teams, like 10, 15 people, 20 people. So like whenever there are like people out there, there's always gonna be like people problem. I guess in some rare case, you will get super lucky and you will just like get along with everybody so well, and then you collaborate so well, cooperate so well, and just like everything all went all like smoothly. But I think that's like really rare, I guess. Like unless you're like super lucky. But anyway, in my case, it wasn't like that. I encountered a lot of like either like a lot of different kinds of situations and problems, and all of them are related to like people. Either it's like people causing the efficiency, or like the communication problem, cooperation problem, or like your superiors are just like constantly nagging you, or like you just don't get along with some of the colleagues or even your team leaders and things like that. There's like a lot of the stories. So at that time, I realized that when you're at the company, when you're working at the office, it's kind of impossible not to play some certain degree of office politics. Like you just have to learn how to deal with that in some sense. Otherwise, like it's hard to survive in the corporate world, I would say. And I think I was lucky at that time during my like 1 year full time working at that company. I encountered two colleagues. They were like super, super talented and super kind, and we get along so well. So I would say, like, because of them, my overall satisfaction of that job increased quite a lot because of them. But otherwise, I think people wise, I really just find it really annoying to have to deal with people. So that's one of the main reasons why at that time, I was like, I couldn't wait to just like work for myself. I don't want to work with others anymore, because it's just like, I think I just like function better when I'm like working for myself. And so in this like episode, I want to first talk about, what I like about working for myself, being my own boss. And later, I'm going to move on about the challenges that I encountered working for myself, being my own boss. And lastly, I'm going to share with you some surprising finds that I didn't even think of before I started to work for myself. So, first of all, what I like about working for myself. I guess like my biggest how do you say, like my favorite point of working for myself is like you really just get to do whatever you would like to do, and you don't need to wait for any approvals from your superiors or your boss or your team leaders, like no one. And for me, this feeling is so liberating, and so it's like a sense of freedom, honestly. Especially, I think for someone like me, I always have a lot of like weird and crazy ideas. And I don't know if you can call that creative or not, maybe, I guess. So, like, and also, like, I realize that I'm a person that my energy level is, at least in like, I don't know, Taiwanese community or like this environment, my energy level is usually like higher than most of the people around me. So sometimes I find it hard to fit into people. Like people will start to think I'm like try to show off too much, or like I just like I don't feel like I fit into much to the environment, the office, the corporate environment a lot of times. So, yeah, I would just say that like my favorite thing about working for myself is like I really just don't need to wait for approvals. I can just do whatever I think of. Like if I have any new ideas, if I want to try out something different, I can just do that right away. And I don't need to wait for my superiors to approve that. And sometimes, if you have already worked before, sometimes the approval process can take a long time. Sometimes you might need to wait like weeks for the approvals to finally issued, or like sometimes like your superiors or your boss would just like reject your proposals 100%. Like they would just reject it, so you couldn't really try the things that you want to try out even if you think like it's a good idea. I think maybe it's also because of my personality. I'm a person that sometimes I'm like overconfident. And by me like overconfident, of course it has its like pros and cons. When you're like confident it's good. But sometimes when you're like overconfident, probably it's not so good. But anyway, I'm definitely lean more toward like someone who is like confident. And so I think a lot of times I'm really confident about my own creative ideas, or like any proposals I want, or any things that I think is going to work out, that I want to give it a try. But when you're like working for others, or like when you're working with a lot of people, your superiors or your boss or your colleagues might not think the same way. So you might not get to have the chance, the opportunity to try out something that you think is a great idea. It's an amazing idea. For sure, it's not like I know for sure it's going to work out. A lot of times I also failed, but I would think at least I want to give it a try, because without giving it a try, you would never know if it's going to work out, right? So I think, yeah, that's just one thing that I really like about working for myself. And another thing about working for myself, a good thing about working for myself is, yeah, you get to set your own hours and locations. So I really like it because I think I've always been a person that doesn't like to be forced to do things. So the thing is, I've never really liked schools. Like back in high schools, I remember I just hate people constantly just like set my schedules and then just force me to do this and do that during like this period of time, or like now go to take a PE class, and right now it's like a Mandarin class, and right now it's a math class, things like that. So I really hated that. So I think I'm just like, this is just me. I just prefer to be able to set my own hours and locations, and it's just amazing when you get to set your own locations, because you can just work still when you're like traveling, or when you're like in different location, and you can locate to another country or another cities if you want to, and you can still continue to work. It doesn't have to be tied with a physical office that you just have to go there every day or like twice a week or something like that. And that kind of freedom is just amazing. And the third thing that I like about being your own boss is, like there's a high potential. Well, of course, it's like very risky. There's like a potential that you're just gonna like you couldn't really survive out of your earnings. But there's also like the opposite, like high potential of you just become so successful. I think when you're working for others, like there's a maximum limit when it comes to become successful or to succeed what you want in life. There's also always this like, I feel like this like maximum limit out there. But when you are like working for yourselves, because it's just so uncertain, everything is so uncertain. So the good thing about being uncertain is that there's always chance that you're gonna achieve something that you didn't think you could achieve, or you couldn't even think of, based on your mental capacity at that time, that you could achieve, like just like being working, just like by working for yourselves. There's like so much potential. And lastly, like what I like about working for myself is I really get to choose what I want to do. So I can do something that feels really meaningful and gives me a sense of purpose. I think as a human being, once you're like, at least like you're like not starved to death, or like you're like in a comfortable environment, or at least you have like a roof and you have some foods, then we started to pursue something that will fulfill our mental, how do you say, crave for like doing something meaningful, and also having the sense of purpose of why you are here on this earth, kind of those like philosophical questions. So anyway, like doing something meaningful that I find meaningful and also gives me a sense of purpose is super, super important for me. So I find that when you work for yourselves, because you have so much freedom, so you really get to explore and get to choose and do what you find the most meaningful and gives you the most sense of purpose. Because a lot of times when you work for others, you don't get to have the chance to choose that. And just based on my experiences, a lot of times I was just doing something that I find so unmeaningful. Like there's like I couldn't even see what's the meaning of behind, just doing this kind of things, or like it just doesn't give me like a sense of purpose at all and things like that. But yeah. But when you work for yourselves, you get more opportunity to do that. Okay. I'm gonna move on to talk about the challenges that I encountered when it comes to working for myself. So first of all, definitely sometimes, or even a lot of times, you feel lonely because you don't have any people to talk to, and it's like there's no teamwork. You're just like by yourself. Here I'm not talking about, if you're like you already have your own employees, it's another story. But here I'm just like completely talking about you are like a one person, how do you say, business, one person company, or things like that. So you really just don't have any colleagues to talk to. And sometimes when you like reach something like a milestone, you want to share your joy, you don't really have anyone to share with. I mean, of course you can share with your friends, your families, but I think when you're like sharing with your colleagues because you guys do things together, like this kind of feeling is so different from sharing it with your friends or your families. So definitely sometimes you can feel quite lonely. And also another things about without like working completely for yourselves, like alone, is that when you run into problems, you don't have anyone to ask, right? Like, and it's like we usually run into a lot of problems, like when you are working for yourself. So of course, like life is consist of a lot of like problems every day. If you just like keep doing something new, or like trying to do a lot of like different things, of course problems are going to come and go, come and go, come and go. But when you are working for yourself, you have no one really, like you don't really have anyone to consult with. You don't really have anyone to ask your questions about. Maybe like some people, I heard that they found like a mentor for themselves. I think that would be a solution. But anyway, for me right now, I don't really have any mentor, and I'm just like by myself. So definitely a lot of times it can be quite challenging, as you have to kind of figure out the solution yourself and solve the problem yourself, and just like make decisions yourself. And another challenges that I encountered was like you really just have to take full responsibility when it comes to every decisions you make, because you are the only one making that decisions, right? So of course you are going to be the one that is going to take the full responsibility. If something just didn't go as planned, then you're the one that need to deal with the consequence or like the problems. And I'm going to talk about it later actually, but I actually kind of like this kind of responsibility that I was given, because the thing is, no, I'm just gonna talk about it right now. The thing is, while it is very challenging to have to bear the full responsibility yourself, but again, you will feel like you have a lot of control, because when you are like working with others, or like when you have like superiors or your boss, the thing is you tend to whenever there's a problem or something just didn't go as planned, or something went wrong, you can always blame others, I guess. Even like no matter it's like mentally or just like actually blaming like your boss, your superiors, or your colleagues. But when you're like completely working for yourself and like just like make decisions yourself and you have to bear the full responsibility, you have no one to blame to. Like you just have to kind of blame yourself and just like, how do you say, like, you know that you are the only person that who can solve this. And because of this kind of responsibility, you really get to learn how to not blame others or the environment, but to do it yourself and to have the sense of like to know that you can change things. And it's not like it is not something out of your control. You can totally try to do something for that problems and things like that. So I think the responsibility is definitely something that kind of like love hate relationship when it comes to it for me, because on one hand it is really challenging, but on the other hand you get to have this sense of control that, yeah, if something goes wrong, then I'm just gonna go deal with it, then I can do it, that kind of the feeling. And another challenge that I encounter is like I constantly have to play two roles. So first of all, I have to be hard on myself, right? Because I don't have anyone to be hard on myself. So I have to make sure that I actually like do something instead of just lying there all the time and sleeping or just like watching series or things like that. And I also have to like evaluate myself, just like I have to be my own boss, right? I have to evaluate myself. If something didn't like I didn't do well, then what can I do? What can I change the next time? And also I need to coach myself as well, for sure. Versus I also need to play another role of constantly like I need to learn how to compliment myself as well. And sometimes like I think at least for me, it's much easier to be hard on myself than compliment myself, because a lot of times I feel like I'm just like I'm not enough, and a lot of things like there are still a lot of things that need to improve, and I'm still like so bad at doing something, and while others are so good at it and things like that. So it's definitely like something that I'm like always like work in progress when it comes to like know when to compliment myself and just like you know tell myself that I already did a great job, so don't be too hard on myself. And also learn to take break without feeling guilty. This is also something that is so important, because the thing is when you're working for yourself, a lot of times you will realize that your free time just like became all like, how do you say, like you don't really have free time anymore, because whenever you are taking a break you feel like you can do something, you could do something with work using your free time, using your break time. So if you are not doing something and just like take a break, or you just like I don't know, just do nothing and just like wandering around, or just like hanging out with friends, or even just like what lying there watching series or watching hate dramas and things like that, you feel so guilty that you feel like, oh, I should have done something using that time, with my work. But taking a break is just so important, because otherwise you're gonna burn out so badly. So I hope you see what I mean by you have to constantly play two roles, be your own boss, but at the same time you also have to know how to be kind to yourself, compliment yourself, and take break without feeling guilty. And also, lastly, I just want to briefly talk about like the challenges. The last challenges that I encountered was is like definitely stay disciplined. And this is something that I don't think I really run into that much of problem with. Like I think when I'm like doing something that I find meaningful and it gives me a sense of purpose, usually I would just have this like motivation to do that thing without actually need to force myself to do that. So I'm okay with that, but sometimes it does require some level of discipline to just get the work done, because like at the office like people are like looking at you, or like there's like I don't know, someone there just like superiors or like boss just constantly asking like how did it go, and then when are you gonna finish it. So you will have this like pressure to have to just do your work, but when you're like by yourself you get to set everything yourself, even the deadlines. So It can be, sometimes it can be like difficult if you like, whenever, like, especially when you want to take a break and you just don't really feel like working, you can, there's a possibility that you can waste a lot of time. So now I want to address two questions like get that I received quite often since I started working for myself. So first of all, like, actually a lot of my friends, that are really curious. So because they think that there are someone who lack discipline, and they feel like if you like work for yourself, you basically need to be need to be a highly disciplined person, right? Otherwise, just like what I said, you are just gonna be a couch potato, or you are just gonna scroll through phone all day long, or you are just gonna go out and just like, I don't know, hang out with friends and wandering around the cities, or basically just messing around without getting any real work done. So my answer to this question was always like, the thing about working for yourself. Do you still remember what I just said? You really get to decide what kind of work you want to do most of the time, I would guess. And so I think it's really important to find something that you feel really meaningful and gives you a sense of purpose. If you find something like that, you actually don't really need that much of discipline to get yourself work, because if you ask me right now to just like be a couch potato all day long, I probably wouldn't really want to do that. I would want to do some work because that's what I find truly meaningful and gives me a sense of purpose, and this feeling is great. So I wouldn't want to stop doing that. I would just like naturally motivate myself to do that. And also another more practical solution I would give is, I think it's important to just set your own deadlines. And it is true that while like your deadlines, you have to enforce it yourself. Like no one really force you to have to really follow your deadlines. But I think once you have the deadlines and you kind of follow through it several times, you kind of just don't want to give it up anymore. Like this is the case for me. Like once I have my own deadlines, you know, for uploading my YouTube videos or uploading podcast, sometimes I was like late for a day or two, but I never really like gave up the whole things because I just felt like, yeah, I already got a deadline and I just want to fulfill that. And, you know, I also feel like, you know, you guys are so kind and always there, like waiting for my new episode and listen to it. So I also feel like this sense of, you know, so I think when you are working for yourself and you get to have your clients or your viewers or your subscribers, and when there's like, when it evolves with someone else and you feel this sense of purpose and this sense of like meaningfulness, then you will just naturally want to do your work without needing someone to force you to do that. And also another more like extreme mindset that I would apply sometimes is that I would tell myself, what if I only have 3 more years to live? You know, I know it can sound kind of extreme, but to be honest, we really never know what will happen to our life, right? So what if I only have 3 more years to live? What am I going to be like couch potato for like a whole week, or am I going to just like do nothing for like a whole month or like a full year? No, I don't think I would want to do that. Yeah, so yeah, that's one mindset that maybe you can also try out. But I don't know, like maybe I'm not the best person to ask when it comes to like this questions, because I would have to admit that I'm a person that I also have this tendency, like sometimes I also wasted a lot of time. Just like I took a long nap, and like I want to like finish the whole series in a day, so I just spend the whole day just being binge watching the whole series, or I just like wandering around talking, like chatting with my mom for too long and things like that. So I don't know. I'm probably not the best person to ask. But anyway, the another questions that I get asked often was like there is a phrase in Mandarin which said 自由业等于没有自由, which like the direct translation in English is freelancing means having no freedom. So the thing about this like statement is that while freelancing is often associated with freedom, in reality, it can sometimes feel like the opposite due to the demands of clients and irregular schedules. So, the thing is, like, look, I think the clients here can be in a broad sense. So for me, like right now, I don't really have any like clients, but I do have, like viewers and subscribers and, people are like that. So I think it is important to kind of not being pulled away too much by what other people want from you. Like you still need to have your core self. And while at the same time, of course, it's important also to listen to the feedback you get from people around you, but you have to draw the boundary. And I think for me, it's always like a work in progress. I'm still so bad at it, like just drawing this boundary. Because when you listen to too much of the feedback, you might get lost in the process. But when you are too just yourself and just enclose, like close up all the people who are trying to give you feedback, then it's also not too good. So it's definitely something that I need to improve. And I think another thing is about like why people said like freelancing means having no freedom. It's like just like what I just said, that for you forgot to give yourself a break because you feel guilty when you do that. You feel like you can dump so much things with the time you are taking a break. But that's not true, because when you feel burned out, when you feel unhappy, when you feel even depressed, you are not going to good at your work, and your creative ability is going to uh, diminished or even like worsen. So taking a break is super important. Once you get to take a break, I don't think you will really feel that much like freelancing means having no freedom. I don't know. And another thing is that I think the story is also going to be different when you start to have your own employees. Yeah, I think it is possible that you will feel that you don't really have freedoms, I mean, anymore once you have employees. It is possible because I think managing people is always not going to be easy, and you have to pay them. You have to manage all the problems they may encounter. I don't know, like I don't have any employees right now, and I didn't have any employees before as well, so I don't know about that part of things. Maybe I don't know, maybe you have this kind of experiences having your own employees. Maybe you can share that with me, like what it feels like. Do you feel like your time is like no longer your time anymore because you now have to manage people? I don't know. So anyway, like I want to end this episode talking briefly about some surprising finds I realized after I started working for myself that I really just like didn't think of before I started doing this whole thing, self-employed things. So, first of all, I find it so fascinating. The thing is, like, you really get to develop your ability to reflect, like reflection, introspection, and just reflect on yourself of who you are, what you want in life, and for me, it actually became quite philosophical and spiritual in some sense that I don't know, it's just like when you have so much time yourself and you're like working with yourself, for yourself, being your own boss all day long, I don't know, it just naturally like your mind just like started to spiral and you just like started to think a lot about you and learn more about yourself, like in all different kind of aspects, no matter it's career wise or like what you want in life wise or like relationship wise or family wise or friendship wise. You just get to have this amazing opportunity to think so much about them. And just like what I said before, that when you work for yourselves, you really have no one to blame to. So whenever you run into a problems, whether it's actually like a problem related to your work or a problem that related to your mind, that you feel nervous, you feel frustrated, you feel depressed, you feel jealous, you feel, I don't know, like those things, when you have like problems, you really, because you have no one to blame to, you basically have to solve it yourself. So you really get to look inward and start to reflect and do all this like introspection. Is it the right verb? I'm not so sure. Introspection? Anyway, to just reflect on yourself. And then, like, this ability is just so amazing to develop because I feel like during the past 2 years, I learned so much about myself, different parts, different aspects of myself. I get to know myself much, much better. And I also get to really know who am I and what I want in life and what I don't want in life. And a lot of things like that. And for me, this kind of realization is so valuable because it really helps me to find inner peace and helps me to kind of reach this state of like really feeling like a sense of purpose and fulfilling or like meaningful. I don't know how to put that into words, but I think I learned a lot about me as a person working for myself, being my own boss. And this is definitely something that I find really unexpected and surprising. Like, yeah, you get to do that when you start to work for yourself. And yeah, that's basically the end of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope maybe you also find it a little bit helpful. And yeah, Pearly will see you and talk to you again in the next episode. Bye bye. Bye bye.